The rap game didn't change overnight, it flinched. 1 minute, everybody was loud, reckless, and fearless online. The next, tweets vanished, captions got edited, and entire beefs mysteriously expired. And at the center of that sudden silence is one name that keeps coming up in whispers instead of posts: NBA Youngboy. This isn't about who's trending. This is about why some of the toughest rappers in the industry suddenly look over their shoulders before they speak. According to explosive, highly dramatized industry chatter, there's a growing sense of panic behind the scenes. Artists who once dissed freely are now backtracking. Features are being quietly cancelled. Alliances are shifting overnight. And insiders claim it's not because of numbers, it's because of reputation. A reputation built on unpredictability, on scorched earth responses, and on a history of situations that allegedly never end clean. Fans are noticing the pattern. Rappers who once stood 10 toes down are suddenly reposting Youngboy lyrics. Former rivals are liking his photos. Old enemies are acting like the past never happened. And social media is asking the same dangerous question over and over again: what do they know that we don't? Leaks are circulating. Supposed DMs, alleged voice notes. Stories of private confrontations that never made headlines but left people shaken. Stories where pride cost too much. Stories where silence became the smarter option. And the wildest part? Nobody is officially confirming anything, which only makes it scarier. Because in hip-hop, fear doesn't spread unless there's a reason. And whatever that reason is, it's got the entire industry moving differently. The shift didn't start with a headline or a diss track. It started with silence. In this highly dramatized, gossip-driven narrative inspired by industry chatter and fan speculation, people say the first warning sign was how fast the tone changed. Rappers who used to joke about beef suddenly stopped joking. Artists who thrived on controversy began choosing their words carefully. And a strange pattern emerged: whenever NBA Youngboy's name entered a conversation, the room got quieter. Insiders claim the fear isn't about music. It's about unpredictability. Youngboy doesn't play by the unspoken industry rules. He doesn't soften statements for PR. He doesn't de-escalate for the sake of brand safety. And according to speculative accounts floating around behind the scenes, that's what makes people nervous. In a business built on controlled chaos, he represents something uncontainable. The first wave of panic allegedly came from private conversations that never reached the public. Supposed phone calls where voices were raised. Alleged studio encounters that ended abruptly. Rumored warnings passed through mutual friends instead of posted online. People close to the scene say more than one rapper had a moment where bravado collapsed into anxiety after realizing a joke had gone too far. And unlike most rap beefs, there was no clear off-ramp. Social media started catching clues. Posts deleted within minutes. Old captions quietly edited. Artists refusing to answer questions about past issues. Fans noticed collaborations that were teased never materialized. Tour lineups changed without explanation. According to dramatized insider leaks, managers were stepping in, advising clients to avoid even indirect references. Not because of legal risk. Because of escalation. What makes it worse, according to this narrative, is Youngboy's refusal to play the villain or the hero. He doesn't clarify. He doesn't deny. He doesn't explain. He drops music and disappears. That ambiguity fuels the fear. Because in hip-hop, certainty is comfort. Uncertainty is dangerous. And Youngboy thrives in uncertainty. Alleged leaked DMs began circulating in fan spaces, supposedly showing artists asking mutual contacts if a line was too much or if a response was safe. None of it verified. All of it is believable enough to spread. One screenshot, widely debated, showed an unnamed rapper saying, "I'm not built for that type of attention." Another rumored voice note described someone having a full panic meltdown after realizing their diss was being replayed in the wrong circles. Then came the visible switch-ups. Rappers who once aligned loudly with Youngboy's rivals suddenly went neutral. Neutrality became the new loyalty. People stopped choosing sides and started choosing survival. A few even went further, posting his music, liking his photos, and praising his work publicly. Fans called it fake. Insiders called it smart. According to speculative accounts, part of the fear comes from how Youngboy handles disrespect. There's no drawn-out back and forth. No mean war. No playful jabs. The response, if it comes, is immediate and absolute. That reputation alone is enough to make people hesitate. Because in an era where most beef is content, Youngboy's reactions feel personal. The industry also isn't blind to the emotional intensity surrounding him. In this dramatized telling, multiple sources claim Youngboy's inner circle treats loyalty as non-negotiable. Once you're in, you're protected. Once you're out, you're erased. That kind of environment scares people who rely on flexibility and networking to survive. One wrong move can cost features, connections, or access. And then there's the fan base. Loyal. Loud. Relentless. Fans amplify everything. They remember every lyric, every comment, every perceived slight. According to artists speaking anonymously in forums and podcasts, the fear isn't just Youngboy himself, it's the avalanche that follows any conflict with him. Once his fans lock onto a target, the pressure becomes unbearable. Comments flood. DMs turn hostile. Public opinion tilts violently. One insider story making rounds claims a mid-level rapper broke down crying after realizing his name was trending for the wrong reason, all because of a line fans interpreted as a sneak diss. He allegedly went live not to explain himself, but to apologize, to no one in particular. That clip vanished quickly, but people who saw it never forgot it. What really rattled the industry, according to this narrative, was watching how often Youngboy came out untouched while chaos unfolded around him. Albums still dropped. Numbers stayed high. Controversy didn't slow him down. If anything, it fueled him. That created a dangerous perception: crossing him doesn't weaken him. It weakens you. Managers began quietly advising artists to stay out of that lane. Labels started calculating risk differently. Features were reconsidered. According to speculative chatter, there were rooms where executives flat out asked, "Is this worth it?" And more often than not, the answer was no. The most unsettling part is that none of this requires confirmation to be effective. Fear doesn't need proof. It needs stories. It needs patterns. It needs enough smoke to make people assume fire. And in this dramatized version of events, the smoke is everywhere. By the time fans realized something was off, the industry had already adjusted. Beef culture cooled. Silence became strategy. An NBA Youngboy, whether intentionally or not, had shifted the balance of power simply by refusing to play along. But this was only the beginning. Because once people started digging into why the fear spread so fast, who whispered first, who warned who, and what allegedly happened behind closed doors, the story took a much darker turn. Once the silence set in, the story started surfacing, not in headlines, but in fragments. In this dramatized, gossip-heavy narrative shaped by online speculation and industry whispers, people say the real fear took hold when artists realized how many moments never went public. The confrontations that didn't make it to Instagram. The phone calls that ended careers before a tweet could be sent. The private warnings passed along like contraband through managers, DJs, and mutual friends. According to alleged insider chatter, there were rappers who recorded diss tracks and never released them. Entire verses scrapped at the last minute. Hooks rewritten. Names removed. Not because labels demanded it, but because someone in the room said, "That's a bad idea." And the scariest part? Nobody needed to explain why. The name alone did the work. Leaked screenshots, never verified, always denied, began floating around fan forums. Messages allegedly showing artists asking, "Is he mad, or do you think he gonna take it there?" Others supposedly showed managers telling clients to chill, to lay low, to let the moment pass. One rumor claimed a rapper had a full breakdown in a studio bathroom after realizing a bar he thought was slick had already been clocked by the wrong audience. Social media celebrity reactions didn't help. Some artists went out of their way to praise him unprompted. Others suddenly claimed long-standing respect. A few even apologized publicly for misunderstandings that no one remembered happening. Fans laughed. Insiders raised eyebrows. Because apologies without accusation suggest something happened off camera. According to dramatized accounts, one of the most unsettling patterns was how fast allegiances shifted. Rappers who once stood firmly with his rivals became neutral overnight. Neutrality turned into admiration. Admiration turned into outreach. People who swore they'd never collaborate suddenly said, if the opportunity came, I'd be open. Fans called it fake. Industry veterans called it survival instinct. Then came the alleged recordings. Supposed voice notes passed around in private group chats. One claimed to be from a panicked artist saying, I didn't know it was like that. Another allegedly featured a manager saying, we're not built for that type of smoke. None confirmed. All effective. Because fear spreads faster when details are vague. What really shook things up was how often the fallout landed on everyone except Youngboy. In this speculative retelling, rival camps imploded. Friend groups fractured. Artists got exposed, arrested, or quietly removed from playlists and tours. Meanwhile, Youngboy's output didn't slow. Music dropped. Fans streamed harder. The imbalance fed the myth, conflict doesn't hurt him. It amplifies him. Industry insiders supposedly began calling him radioactive. Not because he was bad for business, but because he was unpredictable for business. You couldn't control the narrative. You couldn't contain the response. If something went left, there was no cleanup strategy. No apology tour. No carefully worded statement. And that lack of control terrifies an industry built on damage mitigation. Even collaborators felt the pressure. According to rumors, some artists declined features simply because they didn't want to be associated with the tension that followed him. Others wanted the feature but feared the consequences from the opposite side. It became a chessboard where every move offended someone. And in that board, Youngboy wasn't playing defense. The fanbase intensified everything. Loyal to the point of obsession. Screenshots archived. Lyrics memorized. Every perceived slight catalogued. According to anonymous artists speaking on podcasts, once Youngboy's fans decide you're an enemy, the harassment feels endless. Comments flood. Lives get invaded. Narratives form that are impossible to outrun. For some artists, that alone was enough to break them. One particularly viral story claimed a rapper cancelled an entire rollout after fans connected a single line to Youngboy. No diss was intended. No beef confirmed. But the reaction was so intense the label pulled the plug. Weeks of work erased overnight. And while the artist stayed quiet, insiders said the stress nearly sent him into a breakdown. The most unsettling rumor of all was how often people claimed to have been warned. Not threatened. Warned. Chill. Let it go. Don't take it there. Messages delivered calmly, almost respectfully. That tone, quiet, measured, final, scared people more than shouting ever could. Because it suggested confidence. And confidence in conflict is terrifying. As all of this unfolded, a new rule quietly took hold in hip-hop circles: don't mention him unless you mean it. No sneak disses. No jokes. No subliminals. If you're going to say his name, be ready for whatever comes with it. And most people decided they weren't. The irony? Youngboy didn't need to say a word. The industry policed itself. Fear did the work. Silence spread. And with every artist who chose caution over clout, the legend grew. But the story doesn't stop at fear. Because once people started tracing where the warnings came from, who passed them along, and why certain artists folded faster than others, an even more disturbing theory emerged. One that suggested the fear wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. And if that theory is true, then the rap game didn't just get scared. It got played. By the time people started connecting the dots, the fear had already hardened into strategy. In this dramatized, gossip-fueled narrative shaped by industry rumor and fan obsession, the most unsettling realization wasn't that rappers were scared, it was that the fear was working exactly as intended, whether anyone planned it or not. Because without issuing threats, without giving interviews, without clearing up a single rumor, NBA Youngboy had become the gravitational center of the conversation. Everything bent around him. The whispers evolved. No longer just be careful, but don't get involved. Managers warned clients to avoid even indirect association with unresolved tension. Publicists flagged lyrics before they were recorded. Labels quietly asked artists to reconsider collaborations that might complicate the climate. Not because anything had happened, but because enough people believed something could happen. And belief is powerful. In this speculative retelling, insiders claim there were closed-door meetings where executives talked openly about risk, not legal risk, but reputational chaos. The kind that explodes without warning and can't be spun. They talked about artists freezing up mid-rollout. About campaign stalling because fans decided a song felt like a shot. About how one misinterpreted line could hijack months of planning. And in those rooms, the same name kept surfacing as the variable nobody could control. Meanwhile, Youngboy kept moving like nothing was wrong. Music dropped on his schedule. Fans showed up in force. Streaming numbers didn't blink. The contrast fed the myth, chaos everywhere else, calm where he stood. That image alone unsettled people. Because in a culture addicted to reaction, non-reaction feels like power. Theories grew darker, more elaborate. Some claimed the fear was psychological, that Youngboy's refusal to play along with industry etiquette stripped others of their leverage. Others said it was cultural, that his fan base represented a raw, unfiltered force labels couldn't negotiate with. A few even argued it was accidental, the result of too many overlapping conflicts collapsing into one legend. But no matter the explanation, the outcome was the same. People adjusted. Artists began choosing silence as a career move. Sneak disses disappeared. Jokes got cut from interviews. Even comedians reportedly steered clear. According to dramatized chatter, one entertainer allegedly scrapped an entire segment after being told it might be misread. That's when it became clear this wasn't just about rap. It was about influence. Celebrity reactions only added fuel. Some artists publicly denied fear, too loudly. Others claimed respect, too suddenly. A few tried to joke it off, then deleted the clip hours later. Fans noticed everything. Screenshots spread. Timelines formed. And each deletion reinforced the idea that something was being managed, not addressed. What scared the industry most, in this narrative, wasn't Youngboy himself. It was the vacuum. When someone doesn't explain, others fill in the blanks. And the blanks got filled with stories, patterns, and cautionary tales. True or not didn't matter. They felt true enough to shape behavior. At some point, the question stopped being why are rappers scared, and became why would anyone test it? Pride lost its value. Clout lost its shine. Survival instincts kicked in. And in a genre built on bravado, that shift was seismic. The final twist in this story is the quietest one. According to speculative insiders, Youngboy isn't orchestrating fear. He's benefiting from it. And that difference matters. Because fear you create can turn on you. Fear that grows on its own is harder to stop. It spreads. It adapts. It enforces itself. The industry learned to move around him, not through him. To calculate, not confront. To respect the unknown. And whether that makes him the most feared artist in rap or simply the most misunderstood depends on who you ask. But one thing is undeniable in this dramatized telling, the game changed. Silence became a language. Caution became currency. And NBA Youngboy's name became something you don't invoke lightly. Because in hip-hop, the most dangerous position isn't being hated. It's being unpredictable, and still winning. If you're still here right now, then you already feel it. This isn't just another rap story you casually forget after scrolling. Something real is happening beneath the surface. Whether you see it as fear, strategy, respect, or survival, one thing is clear: the game is being played on a different level now. And missing the next development means missing how the entire narrative flips again. So don't just watch, engage. Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. Do you think rappers are genuinely scared, or are they just being smart? Is this about power, perception, or something deeper the public isn't meant to see yet? The comment section is where these stories get decoded in real time. Hit like because it pushes this conversation further than the people who want it buried. Subscribe because when the next shift happens, and it will, you'll want to hear it broken down immediately, not days late. And turn on notifications, because the next update won't come with a warning. It never does. This story isn't over. It's just getting quieter, and that's when you really need to listen.